We finally got an update to Logic, version 12, and it's packed with new features. In this video you're gonna see me using one of my favorite features of Logic, which is the virtual performers. In this case I'm gonna be using the newer version of the keyboard performer, which comes loaded with new ways to control the modulation of the sound of your pads or synthesizers. Let's get into it. What you're about to see is an excerpt from a live stream in which I am producing a track from start to finish using the new features found in Logic Pro 12. With that being said, let's get into it. We're gonna go to Plus, we're gonna add a keyboard player, and in this case, we're gonna be testing one of the newer ones. We got simple pad, modulated pad, and rhythmic chords. I wanna try is a modulated pad. Why? Because we can actually add something very similar to what you can do with Bitwig. So here we go. Keyboard player, thank you very much. And again, my mistake. You can see that I dropped it where it shouldn't be. I'm gonna remove the editor window first, and also I'm gonna drag this guy over here. And I gotta tell you, I'm starting to fall in love with this chord identification feature. It's fantastic. See how fast we're starting to ensemble a track. So let's see. I'm gonna zoom in, and let's create a looping region just over there. And I'm gonna remix my track so we can have a better idea of what's going on. So for this, I'm gonna add a very basic drum pattern just to keep it going. I'm gonna go for psychedelic rock, because it's kinda old-timey. So let's see. That's Drummer, the previous iteration of Drummer. It's still as good as always. So let's see. Oh, one thing, I like to have my bass and my drums first, then bass, and so on and so forth. So let's see. Okay, you get it. Now we got this kind of going. Let's play around a little bit with the modulated synthesizer player. Double click so we can get the editor window. And if you are familiar, let me get rid of my face. If you're familiar with the previous iteration of Logic, session musicians, you might understand how this works. For those of you who are new to this, the first section over here on the keyboard player, it's what allows you to control the space between how far the notes played by one hand or the other are between each other. So if you have a little bit of experience playing keyboards, you might recognize that this side, your left hand, usually will control some of the low or mid lows, and in contrast, your right hand is going to control mids and highs, note-wise. So that's cool because you can do that here. So even though we're working with a kind of bright and kind of shiny sounding guitar, I think we can push my voice into a little bit more on the higher end. Let's see. Okay. I'm happy with that. Now, you could detect that there is some form of modulation already taking place while the pad is playing. That's due to this. In this new iteration of Logic, we got this envelope and this LFO. What's that? Because manual is the sequence as before. But these are the two new features. This section over here. Okay? So, what's that? First envelope. Envelope is following a pattern similar to how you create the patterns on the drummer instrument or the drummer performer, but also you got this section over here. This is basically an envelope similar to what you would find on a keyboard or a synthesizer, right? The tag tells you how fast the effect or how fast you're going to move a particular knob on the keyboard or the synthesizer. Why? Let me rephrase it. If you're familiar with synthesizers or modular stuff, such as this is a Moog 32, and you can see that it has some cables hanging from this particular section. This is the matrix. Over here, you can select one of the different elements of the synthesizer to control another element through the use of an oscillation, because a synthesizer produces sound through the use of an oscillator, okay? And let's say that you assign, I don't know, an LFO, which stands for low frequency oscillator, to be affecting the point on which the cutoff frequency happens. So what you would do in the end with the LFO is going to be moving this automatically, following the speed of the LFO, how fast or the rate of the LFO, okay? So now we got this understood. You'll see that our synthesizer is being affected through this envelope to something that is assigned to CC74. So now let's take a look at our inspector. Let's look for our synthesizer. Right now we got Alchemy. And if we go here, we can see that 74 is Control C, which I assume is the cutoff. Let's see. Okay, kinda, but since Alchemy is kinda complex, I'm gonna show you the same, but on a particularly on a simpler synthesizer. Sounds amazing as well. Let's take a look. I'm actually quite impressed with this Alchemy sound, by the way. So, how to do this? Because this is actually a killer app. You can take advantage of these virtual musicians while using some of your favorite VSTs or virtual instruments, if I use the proper terminology, audio units, if we go full-on Logic. How? Easy. We simply have to insert and replace the guy we got already inserted. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to change Alchemy for something different. Let's look for, let's try Access Stereo, which is totally not an ARP. Okay, this guy sounds like this. Default. Okay, it was set to mono, so let's turn it into polysynth. That out of the box sounds amazing, right? Let's see. Let's see how it fits it first with the rest of the mix. Nice. But what's the point of this? Let's apply the modulation, the one coming out of the performer, to this knob. How to do it? Let me make sure that it's visible to you. Perfect. If you zoom in over here, what is that? CC. If we click over there, we'll see that this controller is assigned to number 3. So this guy, I'm gonna turn it into, let me see how to do it. Clear. Yes. Now this guy, I want it to be 64. So I think I will have to use my surface. Why? Over here on the surface, I have controllers sending the MIDI information. So if I recall correctly, this guy is going to be sending 74. Yeah, perfect. Do you need a MIDI controller? Chances are yes, because some of these synthesizers or virtual instruments require you to have well, when you click on the CC or learn function, it's actually expecting the signal to come in from something like this. You don't need this guy. You can do it with something much more simple, such as, oh, over here, look. I got, which one is it? I think it's something like this, look. The knobs over here in this guy are actually MIDI compatible, so you can actually create some form of MIDI signal, CC control coming out of that, okay? Not expensive, not affordable. Okay, now I got this out of the way. It's a synth. Let's see if it's working. I'm gonna solo once again the synthesizer. Badass, right? That's awesome! Because what you're doing with this is basically speaking, having the virtual keyboard player control the pitch, the filter, the cutoff filter in this particular instance, similar to what you would do if you were performing on a synthesizer. This is amazing! Wow! And look! I'm gonna see if I can make sure that both are visible on screen. I'm gonna change the rhythm on which the performance takes place. Let's try this guy out. Badass! Love it! If I change the tech, see what happens. Now, LFO, we haven't checked that guy out. So I'm gonna bring back this guy, and now I'm gonna click on the LFO. This guy is gonna be doing something similar, but instead of following a pattern, this guy is gonna follow a rhythm, okay? Because as you can tell, this guy over here is an oscillator. Starts here, moves all the way down, all the way to the top, and then drops down dramatically, and then it ramps up again, just for it to fall down again. So, how to use it? First and foremost, let's click over here. And then, look at that, it's also affecting CC74, which means that it's actually affecting both, it's affecting the same parameter on our synthesizer. Let's see what happens if I change this guy to be 73. Okay, I'm gonna assign the LFO to affect the resonance point. So once again, I'm gonna click on the CC section over here. I'm gonna select this guy, and I'm gonna use 73. But there is perfect. So if I let's see, this guy should move in accord to this particular shape. This, okay? So pay attention to this particular fader. Man, I love it, because it's giving this quasi organ-like sound, while also giving us this motion, thanks to the LFO affecting the sound of our, or the positioning of our filter. And you can see that we actually did it using a third-party virtual instrument. Badass. Okay. You saw me also moving stuff around. I played with the rate, which is telling the software how fast this cycle takes place. Then we're using the chords each time the chord begins on the coming from the chord detector software for this to restart. Okay, synchronized to it. We can change the symmetry, which is changing the shape, which is going to give us a completely different sound. And also we can change the phase, which is also gonna start the motion at a different point. Being very frank, I liked at 0 and using this particular shape. Let's try a different oscillation. This is gonna be much more of a sine wave. I, for one, prefer the first one, the triangle wave, but you can tell that we got the sine wave is very similar to the triangle, but of course it's smoother. It gave us a much more kind of softer effect. I prefer it like this because it feels like a ramp up. This is actually a ramp up frequency rather than a triangle. Then we also got the square, which of course at the beginning was flat because, as you can tell, there is no motion. You need to have the envelope, the LFO to go down on its polarity for it to have an effect. And then we got random. This is great for some form of, if we were chasing some form of kind of, not syncopated, what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of arpeggiated kind of sound, like coming out in and out, like a very choppy sound, okay? Awesome. Now, let's spread this around using the arrangement that we already got going. So, how to do it? Well, let's keep adding more sections. I'm gonna add drumming sections for the rest of the music we got already. I'm gonna then drop some more keywords. And man, the fact that I can actually rely on my keys over here is saving me a lot of time. I'm very impressed. This is the first time I actually use this version of Logic at this length.